Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fair Game. I'm Jameis, and you're watching the 8th and final episode of our Impossible Mission 2 NES run. We're in Tower 4 right now, which is devoted to living areas. It also contains the materials and equipment needed to maintain those living areas. According to the information in the manual, Alvin prefers to have a lot of space and doesn't like to sleep in the same bed more than once. A side effect, perhaps, of how bad he got schooled by the previous agent in Impossible Mission 1. And we are absolutely going to have to give it our all today. There's no way around it. I'd say that we should use as few deactivators as possible, but this tower is almost certainly going to have a couple of rooms where you have to. And you're going to need at least one, usually two, for the last room. And since we're now close to the end of this journey, let's take a moment and reflect on what we've learned and where we've come from. Well, first and foremost, we successfully captured ourselves a computer cryptid in the form of Suicide Bot. One of my friends successfully helped elevate Squat Bot to minor meme status. We learned a lot about the game, the developers, their interactions with other developers, a bit about my own childhood, and some really funny information about a certain Easter egg in the Apple II version that I'm still laughing at. You know, when you go back and look at it, it's kind of amazing what a technical achievement this particular game was for the NES in this era. It released in 1989, a time when most NES games were bound by their limitations. We tend to think about how much bigger and better NES games were than the Atari games that preceded them. But in practical terms, they were often working around their own issues. For example, they were actively trying to save as much space as humanly possible when they were making Zelda, because it was originally designed for the much larger Famicom Disk System, and they were actually able to save sufficient space that they were able to cram in the entire second quest. In this regard, it's kind of amazing what Epyx was able to accomplish. They're certainly better looking and better sounding versions of Impossible Mission 2, but all of them have their own issues in some way or another. The NES version is the one that feels most like a complete package. The Commodore version is equally good, if not better, and to the best of my knowledge, it's the only one that has our boy in it. If there's a franchise that really deserves to come back from the dead at some point, it's this one. There's a sequel to Impossible Mission 2 and Impossible Mission 2025, but that's Amiga only, and it has some issues getting it to work on modern rigs. I've heard it's decent, but I haven't played it myself. Epyx was acquired by Microprose and then subsequently by Infogrames. It has since bought its freedom from the Infogrames dungeon and is now back out on its own. Unfortunately, the majority of Epyx's properties remain in a bit of limbo. Pixel Incorporated seems to hold the rights to releasing the original games, though I don't know if there's any specific ownership of the IP involved. And then you have Epyx's involvement with System 3 when they re-released Impossible Mission 1 back in 2007 on Nintendo DS and PSP. What surprises me even more, however, is that this is usually the kind of situation where, if there isn't an official one, usually the community will get together and say, screw it, we'll do it ourselves. Yet, shockingly, there hasn't been another game like this in quite a while. The genre effectively died after the 16-bit era, and that's kind of surprising considering. Think of how many games got remasters, remakes, or reimaginings. And you see everything from straight one-to-one remakes, like, say, the remake of Saga Frontier for Switch, to full-on re-envisionings like A Boy and His Blob or Live Alive. And yet, maybe because of its genre, Impossible Mission was just left out in the cold. I will say the changes to how most modern search engines work have not been kind to it. Yes, Google, I want to look through 3.5 pages of stuff for a Tom Cruise movie when I specifically look up the Commodore version of Impossible Mission 2 and put it in quotes. But that's hostility for another day. The System 3 re-release of Impossible Mission actually just re-released on Switch. It's a damn solid remake in most regards, and I definitely say it's worth the $17 they're offering. If you're a fan of this kind of game, at least. We're actually almost done with this particular room. It's just a matter of cleaning out the center. And for that, we're probably going to have to use a deactivator, just so we can get this done in a timely fashion. One of Impossible Mission 2's more frustrating gameplay quirks is the fact that you constantly have to be on the lookout for anything you can search, even when you really don't want to. You have to look for things like time bonuses, deactivators, and, of course, key numbers. Which is why there is nothing in this game that sucks more than getting into some really hard-to-reach area, only to search it entirely and come away with like 2 nothings and a platform override. The good news is that, as we saw during this run, it also works in reverse. Sometimes every single thing you need is right out in the open, no nonsense needed. And occasionally, not often, but occasionally, the game will let you do something like skip the hell rooms. And we got away with that in 2 different towers, which is saying quite a lot. I do find it really funny that because of the sequence layout, we are basically ending our journey directly adjacent to where it began. Which, I'm not going to lie, is oddly fitting considering that they're giving us this room again. I am an absolute ace at doing this in a single deactivator and no deaths, so this is an easy one. The only remotely challenging part is searching the two searchables while the deactivator is still active. You might be able to weasel your way into getting the potted plant on the right at the top without a deactivator, but you are absolutely not pulling that off for the chair guarded by the other sentry bot. So once you get the hard part out of the way, it's all smooth sailing. I'm pretty sure that we've seen this room at least twice previously, and possibly 3 times. Someone in the comments will probably correct me if I'm wrong about that. There's only a few rooms left in the tower. I know the one with the 4 entrances all the way at the bottom is the safe room, because that particular safe room always has those 4 entrances. Not too many rooms have them otherwise. I actually know how to beat this particular safe room without dying, but it actually requires quite a bit of prep work. You essentially have to grab a time bomb from another room, come in from the upper right side, and blow a hole in the floor right above the elevator. That enables your escape. We're not going to do that, though. This video is already a marathon. The room that we're currently in is essentially a who's who of SentryBot AI. The bot on the lower left has the obstruction script, so he just stands stock still and never moves. The one on the upper left is basically running SentryBot's version of the BashBot Chase AI script. The one where he basically charges you if he sees you. And the one on the upper right is using the same AI as that one insufferable SentryBot from Tower 1. The one where it will continually advance on your position, but when he can't get to your position anymore, he'll just open fire whenever you're in range. The good news is that I've got enough experience to clear this room with no deactivators spent, though it will require some hit-and-run tactics and a little precision jumping to get around. And probably some landmines. Because we have nearly 40 of the damn things, and I'd be remiss to not use them. For many rooms, clearing them out is pretty easy once you know the exact way to do it. And so it is with this particular room. It's just a matter of getting up there and quietly getting all the items so that we can actually get the room to plant a landmine without damaging anything. The last thing you want to do is take out a piece of furniture and then, oh, whoops, it had a critical codebreaker key in it. We're also going to be able to check out a pretty unusual quirk of the game engine in the NES version today. If you are currently searching, certain robots will have different behavior. Some of them may stop in place and refuse to advance on your position until you're done searching, as in, they're pretty polite. Others will proceed to rampage in your general direction the second they lay eyes on you. However, a really big quirk can happen when you're laying mines around. Namely, your searching can actually cause them to avoid actually setting them off. I do not know what causes it, but I do know it is a thing, and you just watch it happen. Either way, that's the main threat dealt with. Now we can be able to freely come up and down the elevator as we please. Now that he's out of the way, our next task is to search the big wardrobe over there in order to clear some space, in order to, you guessed it, once more set a mine. From a purely technical standpoint, you don't actually need to kill this one, you can just keep jumping over it, but it's kind of a pain in the butt, and it's using the same exact script as the BashBot Chase AI, which is a lot more dangerous from a sentry bot, so we're going to take this guy out. Now we just have to wait for him to go about his business, and then we can take care of him. Exactly like the BashBots with a similar script, he will basically camp the edge if he keeps seeing you. And we're almost there. We got the wardrobe. Now we just got to go back up and lay the mine and deal with this little pest. And we just get up there, lay the mine, use some good spacing, and there we go. Problem out of our way. With him gone, we're pretty much clear to search the rest of the room. It's just a matter of getting over that last one in order to check the items around him. Then we have to use a platform override in order to move the platform to the right. That's the only issue here. Because once we use a platform override, he's going to be blocking the terminal, and once that happens, the only way to move the platform back is going to be dying, so we're going to have to work around that. We're also going to have to move fast in order to get out from under him before he lands on the ground. Now we just use the platform over... What the hell just happened? Someone else other than me is seeing this, right? Where did he go? Is he going to be back if I move the platform back? What the hell is happening? I have no idea where he went. Is it because he was right in front of the terminal? Does the game have a protection against that? It's not like he wasn't even protecting anything good. He was guarding a 10-minute boost. I am so confused right now. So, that nonsense aside... Damn it. I hope the next room isn't that much of a cluster. God damn it, it's this room. Alright, I spared this room the previous times that I ran into it, but I'm not doing so this time. It is my contention that, as far as the random rooms go, this is the worst one in the entire game. In the entire history of me playing Impossible Mission 2, I have beaten this room without dying exactly once. But why? Why is this particular room such a giant pain in the ass? Well, let's get right into it. Right out the gate, you need a deactivator and to enter from the right side to get anywhere. You also need at least one landmine. Both the sentry bot and the bash bot are set to their chase AI, which means they will beeline on you the second they make eye contact, and they'll look around often to make sure that you're not there. With the deactivator active, you can sneak past them and set up a mine, but you gotta be really quick about it, and you damn well better hope that it's the sentry bot that sets it off and not the bash bot. Sometimes, very rarely, you'll get lucky and the mine will take both out at once, but that's very rare. The absolute worst case scenario is that the bash bot sets it off, and the sentry bot winds up trapped against the right side. Because once that happens, you have to use additional deactivators in order to explore the area. And you damn well better get all the items because you never know which ones are going to have keys or not. Then, once you've searched everything, you gotta jump down your own mine crater and hope to God you don't land on one of the many, many, many mines that MineBot will have certainly had the time to set up by now. If you've mastered stride jumping, it's still pretty easy to get around them, but stride jumping is more of an art than a science, and it's still really easy to set the proxy mines off, much as it is easy to set your own mines off if you're not careful. The only good news is that once you've cleared out everything, there is nothing stopping you from falling down the gap on the right side and exiting this hellhole of a room. Or, as I just did, you can accidentally tap the direction as opposed to hitting and holding and set the landmine off. Thanks again to the hypersensitive mine trigger. Thankfully, in this case, I could circle all the way around, then come in via the left entrance and use that entrance to clear out the rest of the room without any problems. So, multiple hard-to-avoid deaths, extremely easy to screw up, the fact that you could use a platform override to basically render the room unbeatable, for some reason, and the mandatory use of a deactivator to get anywhere in this room all conspire to make it, in my opinion, the worst room in the entire game. Rant aside, however, we are almost at the end of this. The only thing left is to beat the safe room. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it is possible to actually beat this room without dying. However, it's quite time-consuming to do, so we're doing it the straight way. Pretty much 90% of the room's strat is the same regardless. First, we use a mine to take out the sentry bot up at the top. That blows a hole in the floor and enables our descent into this room proper. We then take a gander through the searchables in the room, and then we head on over to the terminal. From there, we face right, and make sure to face right, before using a platform override. This causes us to fall to the right, away from the sentry bot, and allows us to access the next part of the floor. We then use a time bomb to blow another hole in the floor, search the mattress down here, and then once we've set everything up, we head on back to the terminal again, and use that age-old combination of deactivator and time bomb in order to get the last piece of music. After this, it's simply a matter of dying on purpose to get back up. However, if you do want to do the no-death route, here's what you do. Hit up a terminal anywhere else in the tower, get yourself a time bomb, go to the upper right entrance and plant it directly above the elevator shaft. Once you do that, you do the room as normal, and you can ride the elevator straight up to leave the room. Normally, that elevator crashes you right into the ceiling to kill you, but if you blew a hole in the floor, well, you can't do that. And with this, let's take a moment to appreciate that we have finally gotten ourselves the final piece of music. We have all 6 now. We got both of the duplicates in Tower 2 and Tower 3, but now, here in Tower 4, we have the whole sequence. Which means, the second we get the entire code sequence done, we've won. Or rather, we've almost won. We still gotta use the code breaker in order to open the lock, and then we have to play the entire music sequence in front of the door. It's taken us a lot of time and a lot of effort, but we've come all this way, and here we are. So let's rewind the tape player and play the final song. An interesting quirk is that the tape player will automatically shut off when you play the whole sequence. And so, that does it. We have unlocked the route to the Central Tower. And here we are. The very last room in Impossible Mission 2. This room is much more dangerous than it initially appears. Those 3 squat bots are all capable of killing you, and those 2 sentry bots are specifically going after you as well. On top of this, the elevators have no safety, which means they go straight up and will kill you instantly if you try to use them. Our objective is that group of terminals in the center. 2 of them are fakes and will kill you if used, and the third one is the real one. However, this is not randomized. In every version of Impossible Mission 2, it is always the one on the right that's the real one. So while we work our way to the terminal, allow me to give my special thanks to Mikhail, Antipothis, Mercenary Cobra 1, Taran, Marcel, and Road for all of your support throughout this entire affair. And Neil as well. Neil also helped out. So the ending of Impossible Mission 2 is a little bit brief, especially the NES version because a single scene was cut out. But I'll explain in a moment. So, going forward, let's go, we activate the final terminal, and successfully save the world. And then, this happens. Now, your immediate response is likely along the lines of mine. What the hell was that? Well, after disarming the computer, you successfully trap Alvein on the roof, and, rather than face justice, he jumps over the edge and falls to his death. In most of the other versions of the game, you get a little cutscene of him actually jumping over the edge before he does it, but you don't in the NES version. At any rate, we have done it. We have successfully beaten Impossible Mission 2, and turned it into a possible mission. And I'm going to hell for that joke. And any of you who laughed are coming along with me. Thank you for watching this series and making it as enjoyable as it has been. God bless.